Senator from South Carolina.
Are we in a quorum call or?
Yeah, no.
Thank you very much. I'd like to be recognized. Can you let me know in 40 minutes? Thank you.
You will be notified.
Thank you very much. So our colleagues are talking today about how they're going to vote, why they're going to vote. I think you support it. History will judge what we do here today. Let me say one thing up front. There is no border security in this package. I regret that. I wish there were. They should be. The bill from the Senate, I voted no regarding the border security provisions. I thought sort of inadequate task on parole and a few other things. My hope was that we'd get over to the House. We could negotiate a stronger border security package. That did not happen. And I regret that. So everybody who comes on this floor and says our border's broken, we should do something about it, you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, we didn't get there. President Trump opposed a Senate bill. We couldn't find a better way forward that would get 60 votes. I hate that, but now we have to deal with what's left for us to take care of in the world. So the fact that we did not get provisions for our border, in my view, doesn't mean we can't deal with the other problems the world faces. We actually have to, because if we don't get Ukraine right, and we don't get Taiwan right, we don't get Israel right, then our broken border is going to be a bigger problem. So the first thing I want to say is to those who want border security, you're right, don't give up. But this is not just about border security. This is a statement from the Minister of Defense in Israel. And the supplemental package submitted to the U.S. Senate today is critical and urgent, supporting Israel's capabilities to face threats posed by Iran and its proxies. We thank our friends in Congress and urge our partners to stand with Israel in the face of Iranian terrorism. Now, what is he talking about? This was issued earlier today. This is the Minister of Defense in Israel. I know him very well. He's a very accomplished man. And he's urging us to vote for this package because Israel needs it, because they've been threatened by Iran. Now, since we took up this debate in the Senate, a lot has happened. The Iranians attacked Israel from Iran. Over 300 drones and missiles were launched at Israel from Iran and successfully engaged. Nobody lost their life, but it wasn't because the Iranians weren't trying. We're voting today on a package to help our friends in Israel replenish Iron Dome. This is Passover. So ironic, right? We're having this debate on Passover. Here's my Passover gift to the Israeli people. More weapons. Replenish the Iron Dome so you can defend yourself and have another Passover. That this won't be the last one. And if you left it up to Iran, it would be. So to those who are wondering what we should do, we failed on the border. You're right about that. We should vote yes to help our friends in Israel. I can't think of a time since I've been here that they need more help than right now. They don't need any speeches. They don't need us to attend events. They need us to send them military aid that they're desperate to have. They have diminished their Iron Dome stockpile. They need it replenished. They are dealing with Hamas on one front, Hezbollah on the other, and now they've been attacked by the Iranian Ayatollah from Iranian soil. So the defense minister of Israel is asking us for a yes vote because it's urgent to help our friends in Israel. So if you're pro-Israel, which most people in this body are, they need you, and they need you now. $20-something billion of aid in this package is absolutely imperative to help the Jewish state survive against Iran and their proxies, as the defense minister said. So from an Israeli point of view, this is the most critical time, maybe since its founding, because the efforts to destroy the Jewish state are real. And here's what I worry about. If we don't help Israel now, we'll be encouraging more attacks by the Iranians, and this war will get really out of hand. It's already out of hand. So there's about 100,000 plus rockets in the hands of Hezbollah in Lebanon that if they were all unleashed at the same time, that would be a nightmare for Israel. They handled the 300 drones and missiles, but that's a fraction of what's available. I want to deter Iran from going to the next step. And how do you do that? Let Iran know that we have Israel's back, that we're going to help them with their military needs in perpetuity so they can defend themselves, that we're not going to abandon Israel at this critical time. What does Israel have to do? Not only do they have to knock down the rockets that have come their way, they need weapons to do that, they have to create deterrence. And the best way for Israel to deter the enemies of the Jewish state is to let the world and the enemies know America has Israel's back. And I want to say something about Speaker Johnson and Democratic leader Jeffries. Well done. Mike Johnson and Hakeem Jeffries worked together to pass a package we have before us. We need more of this, not less, in a time of great peril for our allies and the United States. So this was a moment where the people in the House rose to the occasion. They set aside their party differences. They focused on giving us a package that I think is stronger, but needed now more than ever. Since we last had this debate in the Senate, what has happened? A direct attack on the state of Israel by Iran. They need the money, and they need it now. Vote yes. A great Passover gift to the Israeli people would be this aid package. Now, I want to put this debate in a greater context. I've had a lot of my friends come to the floor talking about whether or not Ukraine is in our vital national interest. I think it is. Here's what's happening in Europe as I speak. You have Russia, who has launched an effort to destroy Ukraine, not just the Crimea, but to take Kyiv and turn it into a part of Russia, Ukraine, a sovereign nation that gave up 1,700 nuclear weapons they had in their possession after the end of the Cold War, as the Budapest Memorandum in the mid-90s. The Ukrainians gave up 1,700 nuclear weapons with the assurance their sovereignty would be protected. The map used had Crimea as part of Ukraine. So what do we have now? We have a situation where for the second time, Russia has invaded Ukraine. They did it in 2014. We had some kind of peace agreement. It didn't hold. Why? Because Putin wants all of Ukraine. I'll talk about that in a moment. He wants more than just Ukraine. He wants to reconstruct the Russian Empire, the old Soviet Union. Listen to him, not me. I'll talk about that in a moment. Go back in time to the 30s. If you could go back in time and you could talk to the leaders in the 30s, knowing what you know now, what would you tell them? You should stop Hitler as soon as you can. You've got opportunity after opportunity to hold him to account before he got too strong. You had plenty of chances to lay down the gauntlet, but every time there was a chance to stop him, people blinked. People believed that he wanted German-speaking territory, and that was all. They did not believe he wanted to kill all the Jews. That was a big mistake, because he did. He wanted a master race. He wrote a book. The biggest miscalculation of the 20th century was not to understand what Adolf Hitler actually wanted. He didn't want German language countries. He wanted everybody to speak German. He wanted a master race where there's no place for the Jewish people and others. 50 million people died because we got it wrong. 1941, in this body, Senator Nye, I don't know him, getting into this return engagement war to Europe is only as inevitable as we, the people of America, will permit it to be. Staying out of this war is inevitable if only the people will continue and multiply their forceful demands upon the government of Washington to keep its promise to the people to keep our country out of this mess, which seems destined to wreck every civilization that lends its hand to it. He's on the floor of the Senate in June of 1941 telling his colleagues, this war in Europe, stay out of it. Well, how well did that age? Because in December of 1941, We were attacked by the Japanese. Here's a rule that stood the test of time. When forces rear their ugly heads anywhere in the world, wanting to dominate other people, destroy their religion, put them under the yoke of tyranny, it will eventually come back to us. When the Taliban blew up statues of Buddha, even though I'm not a Buddhist, it came back to me. Evil unchecked and appeased, we always pay a heavier price than if we confront it. Charles Lindbergh, a very American hero in many ways, very brave guy. This is what he said in April 24th, 1941. When history is written, the responsibility for the downfall of the democracies of Europe will rest squarely upon the shoulders of the interventionists who led their nation into war uninformed and unprepared. When history is written, the responsibility for the downfall of the democracies of Europe will rest squarely upon the shoulders of the interventionists who led their nations into war uninformed and unprepared. How well did this age? The democracies in Europe fell because we allowed Hitler to get strong. Every time he would go into the Sudetenland, you name the early intervention. We wrote it off, we appeased him. No, Mr. Lindbergh, you were wrong. The reason the democracies in Europe were at risk and failed is because we did not stand up to Adolf Hitler while it really mattered. The reason that 50 million people died is because you didn't get it. Father Coughlin, the demagoguery from this guy is being used today, demonizing people, trying to convince the American people, those people over there don't matter to you. Well, let me tell you what matters to the American people. When forces like Putin rear their ugly head to take Ukraine, they're not going to stop. They're going to keep going. And we have NATO commitments to countries around Ukraine. Vote yes for this package to help the Ukrainians continue to fight the Russians before Americans are fighting the Russians. And how does America get into this conflict if a NATO nation is attacked? This is my favorite. September the 11th, 1941. Now, when I say September the 11th, most Americans kind of listen, because that day does live in infamy. So Charles Lindbergh made a speech on September the 11th, 1941, in Des Moines, Iowa. And here's what he said. When this war started in Europe, it was clear that the American people were solidly opposed to entering it. Why shouldn't we be? We had the best defensive position in the world. We had a tradition of independence from Europe, and the one time we did take part in European war left European problems unsolved and debts to America unpaid. It is obvious and perfectly understandable that Great Britain wants the United States in the war on her side. England is now in a desperate position. Her population is not large enough, her armies are not strong enough to invade the continent of Europe and win the war she has declared against Germany. If England can draw this country into the war, she can shift to our shoulders a large portion of the responsibility for waging it and for paying the cost. He is arguing that the Lend-Lease program that President Roosevelt came up with to help the island nation withstand invasion by the Germans was a foolish endeavor, that this small group of people in England cannot possibly win, and we're betting on a loser. The loser is Lindbergh. The winner is Churchill and the British people. This attitude exists today. People in this body, right before I spoke, talk about we can't help Ukraine because we have too many problems in other places. They can't win. They were supposed to fall in 4 days. Look what's happened. 200 and something days later, they've destroyed half of the Russian army, taken back half the territory Russia seized, and now they need our weapons in a desperate fashion. They're trying to defend their homeland, and they're asking for us not troops, but weapons that can matter. And I will say to everybody in this body, you sell the Ukrainians short at your own peril. You're in the camp of Lindbergh, trying to convince the American people, pull the plug on England. They're in a fight they can't possibly win. What Lindbergh and others didn't realize, that their fight was our fight. And let me tell you why Ukraine's fight matters to us. If we don't stop Putin now, he will keep going. And let's talk about what he says. Just as people in the 30s, Lindbergh and Father Coughlin and Chamberlain, let's bring him back to life here. How horrible and fantastic, incredible it is that we should be digging trenches and trying on gas masks here because of a quarrel in a faraway country between people of whom we know nothing. This is when Hitler annexed the Sudetenland in violation of all the agreements they signed in World War I. He was telling the British people, this is sort of a German thing. I know he's violating the agreements we had to end World War I, but, you know, it really doesn't matter to us. Boy, were you wrong. He didn't want the Sudetenland. He wanted the world. He wanted a master race. And guess what? Mr. Chamberlain's analysis of Hitler is not aging too well in history. To the people of this body who are going to vote today, you're miscalculating Putin if you think it's just about some dispute with Ukraine or he's threatened by NATO. No, yeah, I'm sure he's threatened by NATO, but he has an ambition here. Putin in 2016, the borders of Russia never end. Putin in 2022, when Peter the Great was at war with Sweden, taking something away from it, he was not taking away anything, he was returning. When he founded the new capital, none of the European countries recognized this territory as part of Russia. Everyone recognized it as part of Sweden. He is telling you in Russian history, because you claim it, he wants it, the Russians are going to take it. This is Medvedev. One of Ukraine's former leaders once said, Ukraine is not Russia. That concept needs to disappear forever. Ukraine is definitely Russia. This is the former president of Russia. He's telling you, and you're not listening, that they want more than Ukraine. Ukraine's part of Russia. The Ukrainians don't believe that. They're fighting like tigers. I don't believe that. If you give him Ukraine, he will want Moldova. Then the Balkan nations, he'll make claims to them because they used to be part of the Russian Empire. Hitler wrote a book and nobody believed him. Putin and Medvedev, to their credit, are telling you exactly what their ambitions are, and you're not getting it. You're making the same miscalculations that they made in the 30s. You're making the same arguments. They can't win. It's not our problem. Stay out of it. Don't help people fighting for their freedom. That gets you more war, not less. 50 million people died in World War II because they got it wrong in the 30s when they could have gotten it right. We haven't lost one American soldier, but if you don't help Ukraine now, that will change unless you want to completely abandon NATO. I am saying it as loud as I can say it, that if we don't help Ukraine now, this war will spread. And Americans who are not involved will be involved. And you think this war costs a lot now? Wait till you're in a war with Russia and NATO and see what that costs. I am not telling you things that I made up. I am quoting people who are in charge of Russia. Nobody believed Hitler? You should have. You should believe these people. They have a mission. Isolationism leads to more war, not less. Isolationism takes off the table confronting evil at a time it's the weakest. Isolationists, in the name of peace, create more war than they ever avoid because the bad guy won't stop. Here's what you got to understand. Does the Ayatollah, what does he want? He tells us he wants to destroy the Jewish state. I believe him. He tells us he wants to purify Islam in his own image, the image of Shiism. I believe him. He tells us that we're the great Satan and he's coming after us. I believe him. So the Ayatollah has an agenda that Israel can't accommodate. You cannot accommodate somebody who wants to kill you. Hamas doesn't want to advocate for the Palestinian people a better life. They want to kill all the Jews. The agenda of Hamas is not to make the Palestinian people more prosperous, it's to destroy the Jewish state from the river to the sea. These people are religious Nazis. What do you expect Israel to do? October the 7th was an attack not to restore the dignity of the Palestinian people, but literally to rape and murder and kill the Jews. Isolationism allows that to go unchecked. America First says, let's help Israel. Let's help Ukraine. Let's turn it into a loan rather than a grant. Let's get Europe to do more and pay more. That's a big difference to me. To the people in this body, if you don't help Israel now, you're seeing the worst possible signal to the Ayatollah. If you believe as I do, he wishes to destroy the Jewish state, how can you vote no? I know our border is broken, but voting no to Israel doesn't make our border more secure. It makes us less safe. If you believe Hamas wants to destroy every Jewish person they get their hands on and destroy the Jewish state, how can you vote no? If you believe as I do, Putin won't stop in Ukraine, how do you vote no? You have to believe that Putin won't go any further when he says he will. To vote no to Israel, you're taking off the table money they desperately need because they're under attack from forces that haven't been under attack before. Hamas and Hezbollah attacked Israel. They're proxies of Iran. But the Iranians launched an attack toward the Jewish state from Iran. Don't vote no. Israel needs you now. Nothing we can do will fix the border, but we can help Israel and we can help Ukraine. Helping Ukraine means we're less likely to get in a war with the Russians. Helping Israel means that we're helping an ally, and the same people who want to kill Israel want to kill you too. So there's $20-something billion to help Israel replenish Iron Dome. There's $60 billion, some of it is in the form of a loan, to help replenish our stockpile. Most of this money is for us, but some of it goes to Ukraine to stay in the fight. They need air defense capability. So to the isolationist, and I know you don't want to be called an isolationist, but you are. When you don't support your allies from threats because you don't want to get involved and you think it doesn't matter, I think you really are an isolationist. You'd have to believe that Putin does not mean what he says. I believe him when he wants to take over the old Russian Empire and reconstruct the Soviet Union. I believe it. I want to stand up to him. I believe the Ayatollah wants to kill all the Jews. I want to help the Jewish people. This is Passover, for God's sake. We're taking this vote on Passover. And not one of the people we're talking about here, the countries, want one American soldier. Have we learned nothing? We withdrew from Iraq in 2011. Senator McCain, Senator Lieberman, and myself, we all spoke up. Well, those two are gone, and I miss them desperately at times like this. But we told the Obama administration, if you pull all the troops out of Iraq, you're going to regret it. The ISIS was not the JV team. They came back in full force. They established the caliphate. Al-Qaeda, ISIS didn't even exist. This idea of leaving radical Islam unchecked and thinking it won't hurt you is insane. These people are not going to stop fighting us or our allies. You may be tired of fighting them, they're not tired of fighting you. I'd rather fight them over there before they get here. Every one of these terrorists that Israel kills is one less terrorist to attack us. Containing Putin in Ukraine means it's less likely for us to get in a war. Here's what I said. I feel all we have worked for, fought for, and sacrificed for is very much in jeopardy by today's announcement. Hope I am wrong and the president is right, but I fear the decision has set in motion events that will come back to haunt our country. Well, I was right, and I didn't want to be. Al-Qaeda came back, Iraq fell apart, we had to go back in. The Yazidi people were pretty much wiped out. Thousands of people were slaughtered. ISIS, attacked the French, and they killed people all over the world because we let them come back. So here's what I would say to people who vote no. Not one country we're helping wants any of our soldiers to come in and fight. They just want the weapons to do the fighting. And if you don't give them these weapons at a time of critical need, you're setting in motion America being deeper involved in conflict, not less. If they take Israel down, I promise you, you're next. And if you don't help Israel replenish their conventional weapons, there'll be a day when Israel, if they have to, will play the nuclear card. I'll promise you this. The Jewish people are not going down this time without a fight. The state of Israel will do whatever it takes to survive. So I want to let the Ayatollah know America has Israel's back, which I think will create deterrence. But if the Ayatollah ever thought we pulled the plug on Israel, then I think he'd be more emboldened. You got 100,000 rockets, precision guided, could be fired at Israel en masse. That's a nightmare for Iron Dome. So Israel has to tell the region, when it comes to defending the Jewish state, all bets are off. This thing could escalate big time. So when you vote no today, you're making it more likely the Ayatollah does more, not less. When you vote no today, you incentivize Putin to do more, not less. When you vote no today, you make China wonder if we really are serious about helping Taiwan. I understand that American people have needs here at home. I get it, our border is broken, and you're right to want to fix it. But we're not right to abandon our allies in great need. If history has taught us anything, for those who are willing to learn from history, is that when evil rears its head, stand up, be firm, be unequivocal. It will save a lot of lives and a lot of heartache. I'm going to end where I started. What does China want? They want to turn world order upside down. They don't believe in the rule of law. They steal our intellectual property. They intimidate their neighbors. And they will go after Taiwan if they believe we are weak and not helping Taiwan. If you want to avoid a war between Taiwan and China, give Taiwan the capability that would deter China. 80% of the semiconductors in the world are made in Taiwan, and the digital economy would be dominated by China. We have a chance here to harden the defenses of Taiwan to deter China. We have a $24 billion package to replenish the weapons that Israel desperately needs, standing up in the face of multiple threats from Iran and its proxies. They need the money. They need it now. This is Passover. Help our friends in Israel. We have a chance to replenish the stockpile of the Ukrainians who fought like tigers, but not just give them 155 rounds. Give them the ATACMs that can reach out and knock the bridge down between Crimea and Russia. The bill before us allows us to go after Russian sovereign wealth funds that are frozen all over the world, about $300 billion, to take money from the Russian invader to pay for the reconstruction of Ukraine. This is a package worth your support. It makes Russia pay more. There's a loan component in this. Pay us back if you can, because we are in debt. I get that part of it. This package coming back from the House was not only bipartisan, I thought it was smart. The component in this package to allow us to seize Russian assets, I think, will have a deterrent effect all of its own. The oligarchs around Putin are now more in jeopardy, not less. That it is proper to go after Russian sovereign wealth assets when Russia has brutally invaded Ukraine in violation of every agreement they made with Ukraine and the world at large. So the bottom line for me is that this package doesn't address the border, and I am sorry it doesn't. This package addresses threats that exist to our allies, and it is in our national security interest to meet the needs of those allies before it gets worse. Whether you want Iran to stop or not, they're not. Israel needs the weapons, and they need them now. Our friends in Ukraine, with the right set of weapons, they can go back on the offensive. And if you don't stop Putin now, you'll regret it later. This is one of the moments in history that really matters. I always wondered, how could the people in the 30s not get it about Hitler? Now I know. It is complicated. I have very good friends that are going to vote no. I have very good friends that do not see Putin the same way I see him. I see him as a guy with ambitions that won't end in Ukraine, that will get us in a bigger war if we don't stand up now. I believe him when he says the thing he says about taking more territory. I have friends that are strongly supportive of Israel but going to vote no. The bottom line is Israel needs you now more than ever. The Ayatollah upped the ante by attacking Israel directly from Iranian soil. For God's sake, let's help Israel and help them now. There's a chance here to seize Russian assets to pay for the war, to take the burden off the taxpayer. Let's vote yes. As to Taiwan, there's almost universal acknowledgement in this body that China will keep going until somebody stops them, and that we want to deter war between Taiwan and China. In this package, we have vital military assistance to Taiwan to make it harder for the Chinese to attack and take it over by military force. Do you think the Chinese are watching what we do with Ukraine? If you don't think they're watching, you don't know much about China. They're sizing us up. And if we pull the plug on Ukraine, you're inviting more aggression from China to Taiwan. If we send a signal that we're not, if you vote no and we're not giving the package to Israel to replenish their defenses, it will make the Iranians more emboldened to keep going. So this vote you're about to take is probably one of the most important votes we've had since I've been here. This is a defining moment in world history. The world is on fire. It all started with Afghanistan. Once we pulled out of Afghanistan, people thought we were weak and they took advantage. Here's what I would say. If you agree with me, don't vote no, vote yes, because a no vote, I think, continues that theme that America's unreliable. A no vote will make Russia believe that there's a growing sentiment in America, and if we just outlast Ukraine, we'll not only get Ukraine, we'll get more. A no vote emboldens the Ayatollah thinking support for Israel is being diminished. A no vote to help Taiwan would encourage China, in my view, to be more aggressive. Now, how does this all end? Here's my fear. These are the Twin Towers. This is what happens when something over there gets out of hand and we don't deal with it. This is what happens when you ignore the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan and you sit on the sidelines and think it doesn't matter to you. This is what happens when a group of people take women in a soccer stadium and kill them for sport. thinking it won't bother us. The 18 to 19 hijackers that were able to do this were able to do it because they had a safe haven in Afghanistan. We didn't get involved. We looked the other way, thinking it doesn't matter to us. We missed all the warning signs. Remember when they said the lights were blinking red before September 11, 2001? Let me tell you what the FBI director says. I've never seen so many blinking lights as I do now. Wherever I turn, I see threats. I've never seen a time in American history that I've been involved as FBI director with this many threats all at once. Everywhere I look, I see blinking lights. The response to that is to help our allies, not turn away. How can you say we're under great threat and we're not willing to provide aid to people who are on the tip of the spear? So this aid package coming back from the House is better than it was when it left the Senate. It has more for Israel. It has the ability to get Russian assets to help the American taxpayer and reconstruct Ukraine with Russian money, not American money or other money. It has a component in here to let the Ayatollah know we're not going to abandon Israel. And it reinforces Taiwan's military defense at a time they're very vulnerable. This is a good package. It has a loan component, recognizing that we are in debt. It's not a perfect package. I wish it had border security. I was hoping it would, but it doesn't. Since we last had this discussion about what to do, Iran launched an attack on Israel, 300 drones, and everything's really getting out of hand here. The Ukrainians are down to their last artillery shells. That can all change when we vote yes. They'll get not only more artillery shells, they're going to get more advanced weapons, and we're going to go after Russian money. We're going to put Putin on his back foot. If you vote yes, it's a bad day for Putin. It's a bad day for the Ayatollah, and it's a wake-up call to China. If you vote no, you're going to encourage everybody I just talked about to do more. And we're friends. I respect everybody in there, no matter how you vote. I just see this as clear as a bell. And there were people in the 30s, like Churchill and others, who saw Hitler for who he really was. And a lot of people didn't want to confront that because they were weary of the war they just fought, called World War I. They wanted to believe that Hitler was just all talk. They didn't want to get in another war because millions of people had died. The last thing they wanted was another war. What they didn't realize is that Hitler wanted things they couldn't give him. We've been at war since September 11, 2001. We're in debt. We're all tired. The last thing we want is to keep it going. Well, let me tell you about our adversaries. They're not going to stop. It's wise for us to help people do the fighting so we don't have to have their backs at a time of great need. Because if we abandon them and say this doesn't matter to us, everything you saw happen in the 30s is going to happen again. If Russia believes we can't stick with Ukraine, they're going to keep going. If the Ayatollah believed that American support for the Jewish state was deteriorating, he's going to up the ante. These college campus protests make me sick to my stomach. You have people on college campuses in this country supporting the terrorists, supporting Hamas. They're not supporting a better life for the Palestinian people. They're supporting the destruction of the Jewish people. Hamas doesn't want a better life for the Palestinians. He wants to kill all the Jews. And my good friend from Connecticut just walked in. His grandparents were involved in the Holocaust. I know where he's going to be. So what's going on in America is very similar to the 30s, but in many ways worse. To those who are out there protesting to stop aid to Israel, you're fools. You're progressive. Do you think Hamas is progressive? Do you think Hamas will tolerate a society that you've come accustomed to, where women can do whatever they want, people can live their lives? You're empowering people who are despicable. They're religious Nazis. You're dumb as dirt. if you think abandoning Israel makes us safer and that Hamas gives a damn about the Palestinian people. They don't. I'm urging a yes vote. I understand this is not a perfect package, but this is a really good package and an important time in world and American history. So I would urge a yes vote, and a no vote, in my view, makes it more likely we spend more money and Americans die that are not dying now. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.